In 2021, a 17-year-old high school student sat alone in a bathroom stall and pitched an idea to a group of investors over Zoom, and he walked out with over $1 million. He had no credentials, no expensive suit, no fancy title, just clarity and alignment. And I want to ask you, if you had 5 minutes to ask a billionaire for $1 million, what would you say? What exact words would you choose, and how would you deliver them? You see, I believe this. There's a perfect permutation of words, a precise combination and arrangement of language that, if spoken with intention to anyone, can unlock the desired outcome of your choosing. Whether it's to raise millions, sell an idea, win trust, or change someone's mind. But the truth is, if I gave you that perfect sentence the student used word for word, you still might fail. Not because you're not smart or the words aren't powerful, but because the most overlooked aspect of any conversation is the person is actually for. We obsess over what to say, we script the pitch, we over-engineer every word like we're building a rocket to launch into the orbit of someone's mind. Essentially, what I'm trying to say here is, it's not rocket science. Communication is actually simple when there's alignment between your mind, your mouth, and the person in front of you. There's a deeper architecture to communication, and it has nothing to do with sounding impressive. We don't fail in conversations because our sentences are weak. We fail because our words are out of sync with our intentions and our listener. That's why I want to break this down into the most essential components to reveal how beautifully simply it becomes when you understand the three dimensions that truly make communication work. It's not about sounding smart, it's about alignment between your mind, your mouth, and the person in front of you. These are the three dimensions of communication, and I want us to start with the aspect that gets overlooked more than the others. And that is the person in front of us. We spend so much time preparing what to say that we forget who we're saying it to. There's something that I've learned. Everyone that you speak to is carrying something invisible. A burden, a bias, a need. And if you don't take the time to notice that, to account for it, it wouldn't matter how polished your message is. Most people think the goal of communication is to express, but real communication is to connect. So before you open up your mouth, pause and ask, what is this person going through right now? What might they be carrying with them into this moment? And how do I want them to feel after this interaction ends? These questions are surgical, and they help you to target your message, because how they're feeling in this moment is the filter through which they'll receive your words. And if you don't speak to that filter, your clarity becomes noise. They wouldn't remember what you say, only how misaligned it felt. Here's a common example. You're at work and you see your coworker tensed, hunched over, staring at the screen, emails stacked up, and deadlines fast approaching. You approach them and say, "Hey, did you get the chance to take a look at that thing that I sent you?" Now, on paper, this is a simple question, but through the filter of their stress, it doesn't sound like a question. It sounds like pressure, like blame, like urgency. And now you're both in a weird place, not because of what you say, but how and when it was heard. That's why understanding the psychological state of your listener isn't just a nice to have. It's everything. Because when you understand where they are, you don't just adjust your message, you adjust your approach. You switch from delivery mode to discovery mode, from here's what I need to say to what do they need to hear right now. To communicate effectively, you must calibrate and fine-tune your approach. No one walks into a conversation empty-handed. You see, everyone carries a baggage with them into every interaction, an invisible weight that you'll never see. They bring fear, fatigue, unmet expectations. They bring the weight of an argument that hasn't left their chest. They bring childhood traumas that contend with their confidence. You're not just speaking to a person, you're speaking to everything that they have brought into this moment. So before you deliver your next big idea, ask yourself, what might they be carrying with them into this moment? Because no matter how good your message is, if it doesn't account for what's already weighing on them, your words might collapse under the pressure of emotions you haven't taken into account. When you walk into a room with someone, you're not just speaking to their ears, You're speaking to their expectations, their defense mechanisms, their memories of how conversations like this usually goes. Before you launch into your brilliant idea, pause and ask, what does this person already believe about people like me? About moments like these? And how do I make sure I don't sound like every other voice that they've already tuned out? This is how you stand out in presentations, interviews, and conversations that decide your future. A while ago, I wanted to give a coworker a suggestion. It was a small tweak, just a few notes to improve their reports. And I thought about it. I planned how to say it clearly and respectfully. So I walked up to him and said, "Hey, I just have a few notes to make the reports even stronger." And the moment that I said it, I knew something was off. He barely looked up, he just nodded and went quiet. I hadn't considered what he might have been carrying into that moment. Later, I remembered that he had just stepped out of a tense performance review and probably felt scrutinized, already bracing for another hit. So, my message, as clear and thoughtful as I thought it was, wasn't received as feedback. It landed like a bro, left jab, right jab, a hook dressed in good intentions but still punch as hard as Mike Tyson. When you understand the state of your listener, where someone's coming from, you speak differently. You become more tuned and precise with your language and choice of words. One of the things that I'm working on is not just talking to people, but designing my language around them. The most powerful communicators aren't the ones who say the most. They're the ones who speak with alignment, who adjust to the moment. They know their audience so intimately that their words feel like they have been hiding in their listener's head, just waiting on the right voice to set them free. You see, it's not just what we say. We must take into account the climates that we're stepping into, the emotional weather of the person that we're speaking to. So, before you deliver your next idea, your next pitch, pause and ask yourself, what might they be carrying with them into this moment? Because if you don't consider the load that they already bear, your message might collapse underneath the pressure of what they were never ready to hold. The final dimension of effective communication is what goes on in your mind. We organize our thoughts not just to speak clearly, but to leave someone feeling something specific. You must ask yourself, how do you want your audience to feel after this interaction? Because what you say is only as sharp as how well you have thought it through. What comes out of your mouth was first formed in your mind. And if your mind is a mess, your message will be too. Clarity isn't a delivery problem, it's a thinking problem. And the best communicators don't just speak clearly, they think with precision. They organize the chaos before letting them escape into words. And if your thoughts are jumbled, if you haven't thought out what truly matters, you'll end up dragging your listener through a maze that you haven't cleared yourself. That's why the most effective communicators, the ones who sound effortless, don't start with what they want to say. They start by asking, what is the sentence that I'll tattoo onto the walls of my listeners if I could? They obsess over how they want you to feel after every interaction, because every conversation is an opportunity to reshape someone's perspective. And if you haven't decided how you want them to feel, you're gambling with the impression that you will leave. My dear friends, spending this time with you has been my pleasure, but before we depart, I want to leave you on this note. The words you speak only matter if your mind is clear enough to shape them. And if clarity is something that you've struggled with, if your thoughts ever feel like a maze that you're still trying to escape, I made something for you. In the next video, I'll show you the exact framework that I use to consolidate my thoughts and speak clearly to deliver my message precisely. I'll see you there.